Yes, welcome in. We're back for another episode of The Swing. Badgers split a pair of games this past week, road games, that is. Lose at Maryland, go to Northwestern, and get a win on the back of some very good play from John Tanji, both games. But against Northwestern, Carter Gilmore coming through with a career-high 15 points, 7 rebounds, 3 threes. He was amazing, and we're going to hear from him coming up here in a little bit. He's going to join us for a few minutes to talk about that game, talk about his career, because I think when you talk about development at a program like Wisconsin, there's two perfect guys that encapsulate it, I think, right now on this team. And it's two guys that we've had on the show. We had Kamara McGee, obviously, and what he was able to do, and now Carter Gilmore joining us as well. I mean, that's the epitome of what Wisconsin basketball wants to be about. Get old, stay old.
Very much so. These stories, I feel like, are becoming fewer and further between, though there are still several guys on Wisconsin's roster that have been here for quite some time. But a guy who turns down multiple college scholarship offers, chooses to walk on at Wisconsin, earn his role, eventually getting on scholarship, and you wait 4 or 5 years to become a major player. Now, he's appeared in a lot of games, but we saw what he did against Northwestern. A fantastic story for as much as people may want to dismiss certain moments of his career, which I know he referenced the haters, and we'll get into that. He's been a great addition for this team this season and a perfect embodiment of what Greg Gard wants in a Wisconsin Badger.
He definitely is. And we have heard Greg over the last couple of years talk about Carter, and people that actually know basketball understand it. And it's honestly one of my least favorite things that he does, but I understand where he's coming from when it comes to a guy like Carter, because he does nothing but what he's asked to do. And in an era where so many people do not, and if things are not going their way, they're not here. And for him to do what he did, it's going to be good to get to be able to chat with him and get his perspective on how his career has played out. But before we jump into that, Home Field Apparel, the official apparel sponsor of the camp, of the swing and the camp for that matter. But yes, they have unmatched vintage gear in the college game. You're not going to find anything better. They have over 180 colleges. Wisconsin just released these new hockey jerseys. I should say Home Field just released these new hockey jerseys or hockey sweatshirts that are like insane. I mean, they are beautiful, and making them even more beautiful, old school Bucky on the shoulder. Old school Bucky on the shoulder of one of them, but they have like a men's version and a women's version. So like you have the men's jersey version with the Wisconsin going like this. You have the women's version with the motion W on it. It's a good looking. It is very good looking. So go check it out. Homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code Bucky24 for 15% off your first purchase. All right. Let's jump into this quickly before we are joined by Carter. Wisconsin splits a pair of road games. They lost at Maryland. It was a game that was right there for them to take. They were up, and then Maryland went 7-11 from 3 in the second half, and Wisconsin just couldn't match it.
It's hard for me to get overly upset or critical of a loss like that. Certainly, you'd want Wisconsin, if you're a fan or enjoy watching this program, to win a game like that. But Maryland is a really difficult team, especially at home. You could see it in the first half. That the length and athleticism that they had made it so difficult to get off decent looks because of Maryland's defense. So Wisconsin could have played better down the stretch. They were right there in perfect position. It was a 1-point game at the half. I think that's what made the Northwestern win even more important. I know Northwestern hasn't played great, but obviously Maryland's a very good team. Those were two teams going into that game that were in the top 20 in the NCAA net rankings, essentially 4 or 5 seeding type NCAA tournament teams. So it's always going to be a challenge to go into College Park and win that one.
I mean, it's a Maryland team that went into Illinois and smacked them by almost 20, wasn't it? Like they went in. It's a good team. It's a good team, and yet Wisconsin had some opportunities because of the way Maryland shot in the first half. You would have hoped, for Wisconsin's sake, that they would have been able to do a little bit better than they did. They didn't, and it obviously cost them down the stretch. Then they go into Northwestern, who was without their best all-around player in Barnheiser, and Northwestern, you knew they would put up a fight because they're scrappy. That's what they are. I don't think they're a great team by any stretch. I don't think they're I don't even know if they're a good team, especially without their top player, but they put up a fight, and Wisconsin had to grind for it through that first half where you turn the ball over 9 times, you shoot 28%, and yet you're only down by 6. We texted about that at halftime. It was like, yeah, but horrible first half. And I know that was everyone's take at the first, and yet they were only down by 6. And it allowed them to stay within striking distance. And then down 8, you get back-to-back threes from Carter, and then Max ties it with some free throws. And it was just that quick 8-0 run there that just that lift that you got from Carter Gilmore hitting threes. And I threw this stat out at the end of the game. It's still just insane to think about. But Carter Gilmore and AJ Storr, the AJ Storr that's making a lot of money at Kansas to sit on the bench more often than not these days, they have the same number of made threes this year. Carter has hit 12 of the 30 that he's taken, and AJ Storr has hit 12 of the 46, I think, 46 or 48 that he has taken. And it's just, I'm sorry, that's a mind-blowing stat for me after what we saw from AJ Storr last year and what Kansas is paying him. It is like, it's crazy. It's maybe one of my favorite stats of all time at this point. And I hope by the end of this year, Carter's ahead of him.
It is absolutely outrageous. I think everybody who saw that did a little bit of a double take, but
no, they all ran to Kansas's stats to see if I was actually right or not. That's probably what they first did.
Yes, and the more impactful player this year, Carter Gilmore.
Yeah, but
obviously,
like I don't know that's close.
No,
what Wisconsin's gotten out of Carter Gilmore compared to what Kansas has gotten out of AJ Storr. Like Storr's barely he played 2 minutes in the second half of that loss to Baylor. They were up by 20 something. They lose the entire lead. He only comes in because Hunter Dickinson fouls out in the last 134 or whatever it was of the game. Didn't play in the second half, and they couldn't score. I mean, they also couldn't stop Baylor, which maybe is the reason why he was not on the floor, because not exactly known for his defense.
I think it's certainly a great example of where we're at in college athletics. I can't begrudge somebody for leaving and getting paid, but also sometimes the grass isn't always greener in terms of the opportunities you're going to end up getting. On paper, you go to a team that's one of the top 5 in the country annually and think you're going to have a great opportunity to start, and that's not how it's turned out. But back to the Wisconsin and that Northwestern game, I'm looking at halftime and I'm thinking this may not be a particularly enjoyable show for us on Monday because they have 25 points at the half. I think it was one of their worst halves of the season, given how well they've played for the most part. You mentioned all the turnovers. That's the worst thing. It's one thing to miss shots. It's another to not even give yourself an opportunity. And yet, down just 31-25 at the half. And what we saw in the second half has been what we've seen for a vast majority of Wisconsin's season. Not necessarily 50 points every half, but to drop 50, to have multiple players go off. It hasn't always been Carter, but it's been somebody, whether it's Kamari McGee, to complement John Tonje, who deserves a ton of credit. I can't say enough about what he's done this season with the 27 points. And it's not just that. In my mind, it's how demoralizing some of those points are, because you could not guard some of those shots any better. I think about some of these like post-up fadeaways on dudes who are taller than him. You can't get a hand up, and you have to tip your cap to him for being able to make those shots. Of course, the barrage of 3-pointers that he's been able to have. But when you're coming off the loss to Maryland and you played poorly for a half against Northwestern, you're in this Big Ten race that is so muddled, where now they're in a multiple team tie for 4th. You just can't afford to give up a game like that against Northwestern team that is under 500 in Big Ten play. And Wisconsin deserves a lot of credit for responding, because you mentioned that 8-0 run. That was the moment where I thought, oh, this is going to get away from the Badgers. They're on the road. They're down 8. What do they have left in them? And they responded in a huge way at a critical time, because now we're in February, and now you're trying to work your way into a great spot in the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament. And those are the kinds of losses that can be killers.
Because again, it felt kind of like what we've seen the last couple of years, where you're so good and then it kind of starts taking the dip. And if they had lost that game on Saturday, that's all people would be talking about. It would be, here comes that February dip. Here it comes. And they found a way to win in a place that, while they have won a lot there over the years, and in quite a few by double digits, there have been games where they've struggled, and just because Northwestern does such a good job of muddling things up. But that said, on Saturday, the way that Wisconsin responded and the way that they finished out, maybe not finished out the game, but finished it and got, a 10-point lead and a double-digit lead, and then you felt pretty good about it because it was going to turn into a free throw contest normally, and Wisconsin's going to win that, even though that did not turn into a free throw contest because for some reason Northwestern didn't foul, which I know certainly was it Bardo that was on the call?
He was.
Just was, I don't want to say incredulous, but he was like, what the hell's going on here with them not fouling when it was, in that final minute. So either way, yes, John Tonje, I would lost a lot of focus on Carter Gilmore for good reason. But John Tonje in the last 4 games since going scoreless at USC, 24 against UCLA, 27 against Nebraska, 23 against Maryland, 27 against Northwestern. And I know they only went 2-2 in those games, but that's just a heck of an answer from what was obviously a down performance against USC. And I know that he said he had a talk with Kirk Penny about it. And, it was like kind of like a kick in the butt a little bit to be aggressive but still be within yourself. But it's not just the points, it's how he's scoring them. I know you talked about some of the fadeaways and that type of stuff and getting to the line, but the dude is insane from 3 right now. He's hit at least 5 3-pointers in 4 of those games, in all 4 of the games. 6 for 7 against UCLA, 5 for 11 against Nebraska, 5 for 8 against Maryland, 5 for 11 against Northwestern. He's averaging, he's shooting 56.8% from 3 over the last 4 games, and it's not on small volume. Like there's some people that'll sit there and say, oh yeah, well, Kamara McGee, like he's not a 55% 3-point shooter. Look at the volume. He's not shooting that many, or Carter, the way that he's shooting this year. Can't say that about John Tonje. The number of shots he's put up these last 4 games. Is he a 56.8% career 3-point shooter? Probably not, but it's kind of jumping back to, he's had a little bit of a down January. And the way that he's played these last 4 games have just been amazing. And if they get this John Tonje moving forward, very, very difficult to beat.
That's exactly right. You see what a difference a player like that can make on Wisconsin's team. Obviously, they've got contributions all over the place when you have your 5 starters averaging double figures in scoring, but he's special the way that he can score. And the thing is, it's not like nobody's playing any defense and it's wide open. These are tough shots. And on top of that, now that he's put 3 months of play on film, people are making him the focal point defensively, and he's still doing this. So I think that makes it even more extraordinary. Obviously, the 3-level scoring ability, the way he can get to the rim, because that's another thing that is demoralizing too, is not only are you hitting these back-breaking threes, but you get to the line, you're drawing fouls, you shoot 92+% from the line. It's very difficult to deal with him. So he deserves a ton of credit for the response, because I think there were probably some people wondering, was what we saw early in the season a bit of a mirage? 41 and 33, it's hard to say it's a mirage, but if you get into the heart of Big Ten play and you're not scoring or you're not the number 1 guy, people start to wonder. And he's back, and Carter Gilmore, just absolute hot fire with the 3 triples and 7 rebounds too. And all of them were critical second half points.
Yeah, that putback on the Tonje miss, which was honestly the throw that Max made and the catch that John made. I was like, that's some pretty, maybe we should be seeing that on a Saturday afternoon this fall or something, because over the shoulder, it was a great catch. Wasn't able to finish, but then obviously Carter was right there to clean it up. So, all right, let's jump into our interview with Carter Gilmore as coming off just a remarkable performance. And we do welcome in a special guest. It is Wisconsin senior forward Carter Gilmore. Carter, appreciate you jumping on.
Appreciate you having me.
So he is coming off a career day. I think that's that's pretty accurate. 15 points, 7 rebounds, 3 of 5 from 3. But of course, a lot of people. I put out a tweet asking for questions for you, and one of the ones that came back, and the one I want to start with, obviously the hard hitting question, is the headband purely functional? Is it a security blanket, a fashion statement, or something else?
It originally started when my hair was too long, like back in like sophomore year. We didn't have a barber back then. We were slumming it back in the day. So I was a walk-on too. I wasn't spending money on going and getting a haircut. So my hair was long. I threw on the headband. And after that, it stuck for a while. And then recently I got a haircut and it was a little short, almost too short for the headband. So I took it off, and I had a bunch of fans, and especially the fans courtside, were nagging at me, asking where I was at. So after that, I was like, all right, I got to bring it back. And so now let my hair grow back out and the headband's back. So
I saw you gave it to a kid the other like, do you have multiple ones, or you obviously don't wear the same one every game?
Yeah. I got to wash them.
Okay.
Actually, Max Klesman's girlfriend over here, she was giving me a hard time, wondering if I wore the same headband all the time. I was like, no, I actually wash it. But our equipment managers get a little mad at me. I'm a little too loose handing them out to the fans after games and stuff. But that's what I like to do.
Here's another hard-hitting question for you. Everyone has been referring to you as Gilly James. What is the origin story on this?
Well, in practice on the scout team, normally I would get to be the other team's best player some of these days. And so when you get to be in practice and get to pretty much shoot whatever shot you want, a couple practices, I didn't miss many. So I was go out there and would hit some crazy shots, and I would let my teammates and Coach Guard hear about it for sure at times where it made it set in a little more. And but yeah, that was just kind of throughout the many practices I've had here. I've had a couple practices where the hoop seemed pretty big, and was able to make some shots, and that's kind of where it started.
I want to jump back to before you got to Wisconsin, because you were a really good scorer at the high school level. It could have gone a number of different places. You decided to walk on. I'm wondering what the reason was, because you had opportunities for scholarships otherwise. What made you want to walk on at Wisconsin and kind of turn down playing time in other places?
Yeah, I mean, me and my family just knew like this was my dream to be here ever since I was a little kid. That's all I've known. My dad and I would go to practices since I was like 5 and 6. Obviously with the connection with Bo Ryan there, my dad playing for him back in the day. So my dad was our coach. He'd bring our team in. We'd get to watch them, and I'd get to stay around after and watch all the guys go in the locker room, sign autographs, all that stuff. So it kind of started from there. And then when recruiting kind of started heating up, I remember I'd go to some of the mid-majors like Missouri State, and half the recruiting pitch was like, what can we do that Wisconsin's not doing? They knew where my heart was. And that's when it came down to my mom and I really just kind of made the decision of why go anywhere else when you know your heart is with Wisconsin. I knew I was going to be a good enough player and believed in myself enough that I'd find a way to make it work. And I know God put me here for a reason. I know this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. So I'm glad I made the decision.
It's unusual in this era for people to stick it out as long as you have. And I know the circumstances are different as you just laid out. Did you ever have a moment where you considered once you got here, if the grass was greener somewhere else, whether that meant more minutes, or were you always just, I'm here to work as long as I'm able to be at Wisconsin?
Yeah. Honestly, the first couple of years I was here, I kind of had to play the game with the coaches, kind of play like I was maybe going to transfer just so I could get that scholarship. My wallet was running a little low, so I had to play those games. Never was I even thinking about. I already had my apartment all signed up, and but I do remember kind of having to play those games back in the day. But then this year came, and Tyler obviously graduated, and there was talks going back and forth of what the roster was going to look like, what the transfer portal was going to look like. And so one thing, I don't even know if many fans, I'm a walk-on again this year too. So they gave scholarships to other guys, and I was like, all right, do I go somewhere else, get a scholarship, get my school paid for? Do I come back here? So after talking to my family, it was like, I knew I had to come prove myself. And that's when I'm at my best. So I came back here again, and that was probably the closest I've been to thinking about transferring or doing something like that. But again, my heart was here. I knew this was my purpose to be here. So it was an easy decision in the end again.
I think a lot of people, when they think about a walk-on, is there an opportunity for, like, does NIL help that at all for a walk-on? Does it cover up anything for you?
Yeah. So I get an NIL, get my school paid for. So
Okay.
I'm not fully paying for my school at all, but
Okay. All right.
in that terms, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Just I think a lot of people wonder that, right? Like okay, he's a walk-on, but he's also got an opportunity to earn because of NIL. Kind of helps out a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you mentioned the work that you've put in. I think for a lot of fans and probably a lot of people that watch games, they see it in the shooting is really, and Greg has talked about it for a long time. You offer so much more than what people actually realize. Anybody that knows basketball knows what you provide. But I think the shooting, I think, is really what a lot of people have stood out. We had Kamari on a few weeks ago talking to him about kind of the same thing. Like, you go from a shooter, the way you've been most of your career, to what you're doing this year. What was this offseason like? What clicked for you, and what gave you your confidence to be the way that you have been so far this year?
Yeah. To be honest, I haven't said this too much, but I honestly vacationed half my summer. Every break we got, I was like, shoot, I'm a walk-on again. I kind of have a little more freedom. This is my last year. So I went to Europe during our first break for like a little over 2.5 weeks with my friends. Went to Europe again with my aunt, uncle, and my cousins during our second break again. And just kind of the time away with my family and friends and exploring the world. It was just kind of breath of fresh air. And just being around them was just like, hey, we had talks of, we know you can do this. We know you can score. Now it's just a matter of going out there and doing it. So I knew it was going to be a challenge to come back here, work hard again for another year. We knew we had transfers bringing in new freshmen that I was going to have to compete against for another spot again. And, but really just that time away, I think, was the biggest thing of just talking to my family and friends, being around them. And I think the biggest thing was really just the confidence, like you said. And I think, like many people know, in high school, I could score. And then it was really just kind of gaining that confidence back in myself to go out there and shoot the open shots with confidence. And once they start to go in, it obviously helps.
After the Northwestern game, you referenced the haters. Have you paid attention to that kind of stuff over your career? And what types of things are they saying, or that get back to you? How do you handle that as a player that is in the spotlight when every game's on TV?
Yeah, for sure. I think at the start of my career, like, I let that really get to me and was kind of on there. And coming out of high school, it was so easy to go on there and see all the good. I was the best player on the court all the time, and everyone showed you love. And at the start of this career, it was like magnified times 1,000, and I'd go on there and see it. And obviously, it wouldn't make me feel good. And the younger me obviously let it get to me a lot. And I think that's kind of where it wavered. And at the same time, my first 2 years, I was so happy to be a Badger. I was enjoying the college experience too. So I was young, I was here, and I was living the Wisconsin experience to the fullest. But really, that's where I think, like, Tyler Hero had a quote a couple of years ago, "I got love for you haters." And really just seeing that kind of refueled that fire in me of, all right, like, I've had my fun here. I've lived the experience. I got to live out my dream of being a Badger. Like, now let's really go do it. And let's prove these haters wrong. So that was something that was kind of always in the back of my head, was I got all these people that doubted me. And I just want to be someone who can inspire others and know that no matter what, you can do what you put your mind to.
In the Northwestern game, did you feel like you needed to do something like that, or is it just the opportunities came your way? Because obviously you guys were, what was it? It was 46-38 when, you hit your 2 threes, and then Max hit the free throws to get you guys tied. Did you feel like it was something that was needed in that moment?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, obviously we could kind of feel on the bench and in the game that we couldn't hit many shots throughout the first half. But then after that, it was just coaches and our teammates telling each other, like, stay aggressive, like, trust our offense. Shots are gonna fall. We've seen it before. So then after that, it was really, I think my first shot was like at the end of the shot clock. It was getting swung to me, and I knew I was gonna shoot it, and I let it fly. And once I saw that one go in, that's normally when the Gilly James can come out once I see the first one go in. So once that one came in, I was lucky to get open again the next possession. Max found me open, and that's what our coaches are really emphasizing this year is if you're open, shoot the ball, make the game easy for yourselves. And I think that kind of goes back to like me and Kamari both doing better. I think it has a huge say on how the coaches have been coaching us this year, giving us more confidence, the new structure of the offense, and stuff like that has certainly helped immensely. And I give a lot of credit to these coaches for what they've done this year. And my teammates obviously just found me, but throughout that game, it was really just hitting the open shots. Once those first one really fell in, I knew I could kind of be a little more aggressive and start taking a couple more.
What's the response been since the end of the game? Has your phone been blowing up for a day and a half?
Yeah, I can't lie. My phone's been going pretty crazy, but just to see the amount of love and support, it was just like, wow. Like, to be honest, like this was like the dream I knew I had as a kid, that it would all be worth it. Like, to be honest, I still remember my sophomore year when it was like I was dealing with the haters for the first time, and I made the promise to myself. It was like really me and God. Like, I give all glory to God. It was just like, we're going to go on this journey. It's not going to be easy. And in the end, like, it'll all be worth it. And that was the day, and it was special. And my phone's been going pretty crazy ever since.
Is there one thing that stands out from after the game? Is there like a moment? Because I saw some videos after the game, like like pointing at people and giving hugs out, and like just it felt like just absolutely living up the entire moment, all you could live up, or taking it all in and living it as much as you could.
Yeah, I'm trying to think one moment. I mean, obviously hugging my mom right away, just my parents being able to be there. But other than that, I mean, really just everything. Like, I mean, Brad Davison obviously tweeting out like build a statue, and that one stood out too. But no, I mean, overall, I was just overwhelmed with all the love and support. I knew it was always there, but that's what this game's all about, and that I was just glad that I could be a light in other people's days.
So someone actually tweeted at me a statue of you. So maybe I'll have to send that your way, because it was your hair looks fantastic in it. I'll just say that.
Well, we'll see what we can do about that.
Yeah.
You talked before about the first couple of years and being a young guy and living the college experience. Do you think you've recommitted yourself to basketball and being the best player that you can be these last couple of years? And what would you say is maybe the difference in how you've been able to grow as a player from an on-court perspective?
Yeah, for sure. I think I am fully committed to basketball. And to be honest, like my first 2 years, I really wasn't. And I would show up and work hard, but I wasn't putting in the extra work that like a walk-on would need to, and that I personally would need to get to where I am today. So then after my first 2 years, I was like, we won the Big Ten. I was like, wow, like the first year was COVID, so I didn't really get to see what it was like. It was just cardboard cutouts. So I was like, fun, but we're running the swing offense back then. I was like, let me see what the college, I mean, I was sitting inside for a year, but so then my sophomore year, I really lived it up, and we were winning games, and we were having fun with it. So then that kind of all that happened. I was like, all right, if I'm going to be one of those guys, like I got to put in the work. And I actually got almost like overly committed, where it was like everything I was doing was thinking about basketball. I couldn't do this because of basketball. And it was almost like I read a bunch of books now, and it's actually, I mean, that's why I know I'm a Wisconsin Badger, because I've had to grow so much, and I was forced to grow because of this basketball experience. And I was really training in fear of, oh, if I don't do this, I won't be good enough. And kind of that mindset shift of, I was playing the game in love and joy before. Of, I was a kid, I loved the game, and I was training because I loved doing it. And then once it shifted to like the fear-based of, I was training because I was fearful of not being the person or the player I could be. That's when I think I started shot faking, because I was scared, and I was playing full of fear. And then I was kind of, like I said, going on those trips, and then kind of shifting it back into playing with love and joy. And that's what Coach Gard has our goal sheets. And it was like, how do you want to play this year? And normally it was, people say, I want to be Big Ten Player of the Year, or I want to be the best defender on the team. And really it was just saying that I just want to play with love and joy. And so that was kind of the full transformation of like being committed to basketball. I was not very committed. I was overly committed. And now it's finding the balance of enjoying the process, enjoying the ups and downs, going to practice, working hard, putting in the extra work, but also enjoying the time away with friends, family, and doing the stuff I love. And so really it was just all that, a full circle thing that came here. But now I'm fully committed to basketball for sure. And that's what I love to do. And I'm glad I found out how to do it the right way too here.
When you look at what is left of this season, the way that you guys are playing, because of how the last couple of years where you guys weren't able to sustain, what is the key, do you think, in your mind, to be able to sustain the way that you have played to this point in the year, to keep it going through February and then hit March and be hitting at the exact right moment? We kind of thought you guys were, in the Big Ten tournament, the way you played in the Big Ten tournament last year, and then obviously the NCAA tournament didn't go the way anybody wanted to. How do you gradually build into March?
Yeah. One of my theories that I've always been telling Coach Gard since I've been here is the school aspect. If everyone looks at our hot streaks, I'm telling you, it's over the Thanksgiving when we got a little break. We always seem to find a way to win those tournaments, and then over Christmas break, which is like almost 2 months for us here. So, and we can go on those hot streaks, and all of a sudden school starts ramping up. You get the academic pressures, and you get a little more road travel here. So I think that plays a card into it. But I think the maturity of this team, we have a lot of older guys, and just guys who kind of been through it before, know the process. And we're just kind of, Coach Gard always has a saying of play with a lead. In the academics, don't be turning your assignments the day of or right as they're due. Get ahead so that you can come into practice locked in and focused. And that's one of the main things I've taken away from him and been preaching to these other guys. And obviously it helps when they're older as well. They've all been through it and kind of all know the schedule now. So now it's just teaching the transfers. John Tonje, he's in the master's program. He doesn't have too much homework to worry about, but he's on top of his for sure. So I think that's one of the keys for sure, is balancing the schoolwork and the basketball. But then after that, it's really just, I think the maturity on this team that helps the most. And going into the half times and all these practices, you got to stay locked in. These are the dog days of the season. Not everyone's going to want to be there. Not everything's going everyone's way. But you got to show up, work hard, do your job, and then just continue to get better each day. And I think that's everyone in the locker room's done a great job. Kamari does a great job being the positive leader. Max does a great job sharing his voice. John Tonje, and then the young guys, Nolan and JB and Janicki and all them, do a great job. Just everyone being a leader, really. So I think everyone's just got to keep it up and do their job.
You referenced growing up around the game. Your dad played on Bo's first national title winning team at UW Platteville. Do you have any good Bo stories from over the years? Either things he told you or you experienced as a young guy?
I remember they had like a national championship ceremony or something. We had to go to Platteville and do that. And then he invited the team over to his house. And I remember going to his house, and he had chefs at his house, a pool in the basement, and all this stuff. And he didn't have a basketball hoop and all at his house somehow. So that's how little I was. I must have been like 7 or 8. I was trying to show Bo already that I was ready to play for him. So he had to walk me down to the neighbor's house who had a stand-up basketball hoop and let me go out there and shoot some shots with him and my dad. And so that was one of the stories I remember for sure. And then another story, I mean, like I said, my dad would take me and some of my teammates up to practices, and Bo would obviously stay after and let tell the players to walk over and introduce themselves. And not necessarily Bo related, but one of the cool moments that I got to see was Douye Dukin back in the day was barely playing. He was younger, and he stayed after and was shot like 500 shots with a manager. And me and my buddies were trying to shoot some shots, so we stayed after and we're messing around. But I just remember watching him and just being like, wow, like this is how hard he has to work and barely even touches the floor. And obviously his role grew, but he came back this winter and we were just practicing, and he played, and I got to play against him. And I told him like, wow, like you were one of the guys that really inspired me and showed me like how hard to work. And that was actually a comment that stood out on one of the posts as he commented at me, just say, way to hoop, brother. So yeah, but that was all thanks to Bo letting us get to that practice and being around those guys.
So when you, after the game, you said you didn't like to scroll, or I should say in high school, you loved to scroll, right? Like through all the stuff, because it was all positive. Then it turned negative. After the game on Saturday, are you scrolling?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would always kind of scroll. I wasn't like off my phone. I can't look at it. And like I said, some of it drove me. So like, there I wouldn't look, but I mean, yeah, it was hard not to. And then at the same time, I'm like, I'm trying to respond to everyone that's showing love and support. But yeah, I was scrolling a little bit for sure.
I just wanted to follow up real quickly. One of the questions I asked for, or I should say, one of the questions I got was, what is a more memorable collegiate dunk for you? And it was the putback dunk versus Virginia. Was that last season? Or the dunk on Greg Gard in the locker room this season?
I would definitely say the dunk against Virginia, but that dunk on Coach Gard felt pretty good too. I think especially I only played like 3 minutes that game or something at the start of the season, so had to get that one in there.
Another question we got was, I think it was a big picture question, just about what do you want to pursue after this? What are your plans for post basketball?
Yeah, so that's really still up in the air. After this year, I mean, it was going to be hard to sell me as a non-shooting 5. So I was like, I'm going to have to shoot a 3 ball if I'm going to want to play anywhere after this. So that was part of the reason. But so yeah, I'm thinking about playing after this. Otherwise, I would love to be a coach someday, or I've even explored being a life coach for athletes, especially in this NIL world, just kind of helping the athletes kind of navigate. Like I said, I kind of got lost and didn't really have anywhere to turn to, or anyone who has been in my position really. So I think I'm going to try to go play overseas. After that, either try to be a basketball coach or be a life coach after that. But we'll see. I'm trying to find maybe another year of eligibility here if I can after this year. We'll see what all happens with that Nizier situation and see if I can find any loopholes over there.
So there is a chance we're going to get another year of Carter Gilmore.
I've been trying to keep it on the down low, but I'm going to try to find a loophole if there is one. Just now,
make an effort. I mean, Everyone's finding loopholes. There will be a loophole to find, and it just brings you back to Micah Potter having to sit out half a year, which is just Won't bring that up. Bad memories for everybody. Ridiculous. But hey, Carter, really appreciate your time, and we're certainly enjoying this this little push by you and by everybody else, because this was not expected. I don't think going into this year, not just your scoring, but just the team, the way that they're playing. So congratulations, and we'll look forward to seeing you down the line.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right. There he was, Carter Gilmore. Appreciate his time, and he's really good. I really enjoyed talking to him.
I'm not going to lie. That might be the best player interview we've ever done on any show. Just a delight to talk to and willing to tell you what's on his mind, which is great.
Yeah, and we might get another year Carter Gilmore.
Everybody should deserve the Van Wilder treatment if they can get it.
I mean, I took it. So yeah, he was fun to talk to. Before we wrap it up, let's get into a few listener questions here. This is from Minnesota Badger on Blue Sky. I need to apologize to our listeners on Blue Sky because I completely forgot about their questions last week, and someone called me out on it fairly, and so I'm making an effort to include everybody. It's not normal. Like, I just don't think about it. I put it out there and I just totally forget about it. So trying to be better. So this one's from Minnesota Badger on Blue Sky. It says Blackwell and Tanjay always seem to step up when the other may not be on their game. Of the two, which one do you believe opponents feel is the most dangerous and try to take out of their game?
I mean, they're both dangerous in their own way, but we touched on John Tanjay earlier, the fact that he can score at every level, get whatever shot he seems to want, and that he's on a hot streak right now. He had a tough game against Northwestern. He had 5 early points and didn't score, but his responsibilities are a little bit different from John. He's got to bring the ball up, set everything up. So you want both of them because they account for 40+% of Wisconsin's scoring. And if the Badgers are going to make a run in the tournament, both of them have to play well. Well, John, I think, is probably number one because he's the team's leading scorer.
Which John?
Tanjay.
Okay. All right. For the Johns. You think it's okay? He is. Do you think he has a bigger? Like, do you think Blackwell has a bigger role on the other end,
defensively?
Yeah,
I do.
Like a more intense. So yeah. But if we're just strictly talking about offensive game,
right? Taking away from the other team defensively, right?
Yeah. All right. Sam says it seems that at the end of the games, with 8 to 10 point leads, they play burn the clock versus run a play, and then the game tightens up. What do you think about this?
I don't know if I've studied it enough. I don't know. I don't look at it like, I can't think of many games where you'd say Wisconsin has gone into a shell and they're not doing what they need to do to win. How many games can you say, like, oh, they had a 4-point lead and they let it get away because they weren't playing the way that they should have? I know the Maryland game didn't go their way, but
I'm thinking like 8 to 10 point leads. Right? Like, so the Northwestern game, that tightened up probably tighter than it should have been, right?
I guess. I don't know. I don't have much of a strong opinion on that, okay. I suppose.
All right. That's fine. Doc says the offense is clearly having difficulties when the defense extends pressure out past the 3-point line. Should we be concerned that the offense hasn't adjusted and we only able to come back due to playing lesser teams?
No, but I will say, I think the concern lies in, again, we're at that time of the year where you just start projecting ahead of what could this mean for the postseason. When you play a team that has the style of physicality and athleticism and length of a Maryland, what happens when they get up in you? And it's really difficult to get some of those 3-point shots up when you've been so reliant on getting to the rim, which is going to be harder, especially if you have some big dudes who can take that away and you're relying on those open 3-point shots. That's my question, is what happens when they play multiple teams like that? But I'm more encouraged, certainly, by what we've seen for the vast majority of this season because of the way in which they can score and the number of players who can score. You could legitimately say that there are 7 guys who could give you double figures, and that's not even including a guy like Xavier Amos who hasn't gotten a ton of minutes. So that's part of why I think Wisconsin is capable of overcoming it.
This is kind of, I guess, a similar question. Nuclear Badger, when the Badgers aren't hitting their threes, see the second half versus Maryland or first half versus Northwestern, except for Tanjay, what else does the team do well that they can turn to besides making free throws?
I was going to say they're the best free throw shooting team in the history of free throw shooting, at least as of now. I think they do a pretty good job of being able to get to the rim. Certainly Tanjay can do it. We've seen Blackwell, his ability to do it. If you are not hitting, and it's not going to change Wisconsin's approach. That's the other thing. They're still going to attempt 27 plus threes in a game. You just have to hope they get hot, which is what they were able to do against Northwestern in the second half. But I think you've got to rely on your bigs to step up in those moments. Obviously, both Winter and Crowell can step out from three, but you'd like to be able to rely on them inside if you know you're having trouble scoring from the perimeter.
Final one, Mikey says, is Kirk Penny the next head coach of the Badgers?
Oh, man. I'm not going to rule it out, but I think Greg is going to be here for a while. Certainly it would make a lot of sense in the future, but I also know that Penny kind of goes season to season. And I remember talking to Greg before the season that from what he said, there were several suitors for Kirk after what he was able to do in year one, and Wisconsin was able to keep him around. We know how much this place means to him as a former player, but I mean, we're speaking hypotheticals a decade from now, I suppose, at least, if obviously Wisconsin continues to win. I don't think there'd be anybody who'd be upset about it, though, down the road, because Kirk Penny has just a tremendously bright future and can't say enough about what he's been able to do in his 2 years here as the special assistant to Greg.
I lied. One more, because it's a question on a guy that you just did a story on, John Blackwell. How much money is it going to take to retain Blackwell next year? Will UW have enough resources to do it? I'm not asking you for for anything specific, but
yeah, I don't have a specific number. Obviously, I will say, so when I was doing that story, I talked to several people and I sat down for a pretty lengthy time with Sharif Chambliss, who recruited him out of high school. And while it's impossible to know what someone's going to do, because we saw with Chucky Hepburn, sometimes you get a number somewhere else and it's just really difficult to turn down. I know they feel like, what's that?
Sorry.
Well, I know they feel like John is, look, he's the type of player who you would think wants to stick it out until he gets his shot in the NBA, if he is able to get to that level and how much this place means to him. It's just, I think we're in an era where it's hard to know or say that about anybody because of what's possible and what's out there. But I'd say Wisconsin is in as good of a position as possible. And much like his dad, Glenn, said at the end of that story, I've talked to him about this. We are not going to microwave your career. We want to slow cook you. We want to develop you over time. And those are all the things that Wisconsin presents. But the Chucky thing is just, I think every test case moving forward will be compared to that, because that's somebody that you thought he was a 3-year starter. He was going to be a 4-year starter. He had all the playing time here in the world, and Louisville offered him a hefty sum of money, and he's having a great year there too. So you can't say it was the wrong decision.
I think the difference between the two is I think John has an NBA future. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think John's ceiling as a pro.
I don't think Chucky does.
It's hard to know. Chucky's going to play a long time professionally because of his skill level. But Blackwell at 6'4" as a combo guard who can do so many different things is giving you 16 points a game as a sophomore. It makes you wonder, what is this dude going to look like next year? And if he happens to still be playing college ball as a senior, what's it going to look like then? He's just got a tremendously high ceiling. So I think he's got the potential to be an NBA guy for sure.
Yeah. That's no shot at Chucky. Like Chucky's, it's just size-wise and maybe athletic. I'm not gonna. I guess I will be surprised if next year Chucky's in the NBA, as opposed to he's going to have a long career overseas. I think he could have an extended career. Like Jordan Taylor, we talked to Jordan Taylor earlier this year. Like I think he could have that type of career over there, like that long of a career for sure, and make a ton of money. It's just the reason you go to Louisville this year, because of the money it is because you don't know whether you're going to have that money, you're ever going to make that much money in a single year anywhere you're going to be again. So I think that, whereas I think John Blackwell has an NBA future and maybe he feels more confident that he can make, like making however much more you would make at UW at another school, his development here is going to be better for him, his long-term future NBA wise, and he'll make more money. It's not going to be an issue there. Who knows? Probably talking on my ass on that one, but I think they're different just for that reason. But again, never expected Chucky to leave, even though we heard all the stories even the year before he left, and some of the money that was thrown his way, whether it was Creighton or otherwise. It's really, really tough to turn down. So.
I would also say, not that Wisconsin wouldn't have made Chucky a priority, but when you have the resources and you're looking at your board, John Blackwell is going to be at the top of people you absolutely want to and need to keep. And every year it's different, but we don't need to get into all of it. But obviously there's a revenue sharing process that has the potential because it needs to be finalized and approved in April. And I just think that this school will be well positioned to retain its best players, but there are always going to be other schools willing to pay more. And that's where we're at in the landscape of college basketball. But I don't want to take away from this season and what John has done, because it's been tremendous.
It has been. So looking forward to seeing how it plays out for him and plays out for everybody else, as Wisconsin will get ready to take on Indiana on Tuesday nights. All right, Jesse, thank you very much. We'll be back next week.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, there he is, Jesse Temple from The Athletic. You've been listening to The Swing.